to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I'm Lorianne Casdia. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. And we speak here all the time about doing things for yourself and serving other people and really finding the joy. And our guest today, we were speaking together earlier and talking about finding joy in everything that we do, because that's one of the reasons why we're here, is to find the joy. So with us today is one of my dear friends, Paul Saladino, and welcome.
Oh, thank you.
It's so nice to have you. It always is. You are an intuitive, correct?
Yes.
So some would say, what is an intuitive?
The common definition of an intuitive is psychic. People use that as a common definition. An intuitive is somebody who actually uses their intuition to see life differently than the average person. It's not through an intellect. It's not through thought. It's through a knowing. It's through a spiritual knowing that we're all given at birth, and very few of us train. But as I grew up and learned about my intuition and trained it more, they label you as an intuitive or psychic, which is just using your intuition, your higher wisdom, the enlightenment and the knowing of the hereafter and what comes from there, not on the human level.
How does that differ from a medium?
A medium is somebody who can connect to those who pass on, who actually hears or makes connection to those in the afterworld, which I am as well. And they call us mediums because they vibrate at a very high frequency it's almost like a radio frequency, and their frequency is far greater than ours, and we on the physical realm are on the lowest form of vibration. So we as mediums meet them in the middle. That's why we got the name medium. And so mediums are intuitive mostly. They're not always. There are mediums who don't have a very high intuition or are able to use their intuition, but I seem to resonate with both.
Yes, because you're extra special.
Oh, thanks.
Well, I think so.
Well, thank you.
So this recently you had a faith workshop. How did that go? Tell us about it.
Yes, it went extremely well. And the reason I did it is because I do a monthly workshop every month, and I do it on a different topic that I think would benefit people to expand their horizons, open themselves up, maybe enlighten themselves. And throughout my years of doing these workshops, everybody asked me to do this. They asked me, hey, listen, all this comes back down to faith. We have to, what is faith? We've been taught through religion. We've been taught to experience what we can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear, but you seem to know more than that. So can you do a workshop on that? And it really was amazing. It was incredible to undo some of the stuff that we've been conditioned to believe as humans. Most of us are taught to believe what somebody else believes, but in faith, true faith is believing in something that you don't know, you don't have any validation of. And people enjoyed it because I think it took a lot of pressure off of them. They were able to release all of the guilt and fears that were placed on them through religious faith, and able to formulate their own, which gave them a lot of peace and happiness.
Well, that's lovely. I define belief as a thought you just continue thinking over and over and over again, so that becomes a belief. And we were speaking earlier about how we're pigeonholed sometimes, and someone says something and suddenly we believe that's who we are. Right. And we start buying our own press, and we start, there's different elements and levels of it. So it's really something that we have to train more people to understand, especially our little people, sure, that they come factory installed with everything that they need. It's all inside. We just have to allow them to tap into it and appreciate it. That's why we're all so different, because everybody else is taken. You're the best you. So, trying to be somebody else doesn't really work, does it now, Paul?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And so we're rarely taught to go within ourselves. We go to the external source to condition ourselves or to define ourselves. And I agree with you. With children, I think it's so important and really to our detriment that we start to teach children to go within themselves and to become the best version of themselves and not follow anyone else's path.
Yeah. I know it's easier when you're in school, to have everybody do everything everybody else is doing, but that sets a pattern.
Sure.
That becomes a habit. And we talk about habits right? And setting those habits. Those aren't the type of habits I'm talking about either. More like meditating and doing affirmations and going within and believing in yourself. And that's one of the things that we do here at Healthy Lifestyle. We give everybody an opportunity to dip their toe into a topic that they may not have heard anything about, maybe eliminate some of those misnomers that are out there about various topics. And this is one of them: spiritualism, intuition, mediums. I have found great calm, resolve, serenity from going to mediums, because they connect me up with people who have passed, and it calms me because I know they're in a good place, and I know that they're around me all the time, and all those things, and I know that they went to a beautiful place. So that's nice, because it's something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
And then just to do a better job here. It allowed me to focus to serve the people here as best as I can, as I'm intended to do.
How beautiful. And that's the intention behind spirituality and anything that you do spiritual. It's all for the higher and greatest good. That's what it's for. If you look into most of the other religion and educational realm that we have here on earth, a lot of it is to serve the human satisfaction. Whereas spirituality takes it a step further, and it's more nurturing the soul's desire. And that's two different parts of us, and people don't quite understand that. That's where I think it's really important to get into children very young and teach them that there's another part of them that's brilliant and beautiful, that has the answers and that can guide them to their greatest and highest good, and to understand fully that, yes, you'll have to fall and you'll have to falter, but in that's the greatest lesson.
Well, that's what you learn from. You learn from failures, not success.
Absolutely.
We take success for granted, and we look at a failure as something bad. It really isn't. It's an opportunity to learn and do it better.
Right.
And as long as we don't continue to repeat it, because even if we do, karma and the universe will repeat it until you learn it. So just try to learn it the first time. It's a lot easier.
Yes.
That's what I'm finding. I love one of the things that you do, and you do it every single year. It's an event in November. Yes. I believe this year it's November 9th.
Yes.
November 9th. And it is a wonderful, uplifting. You walk in, I start with goosebumps, and I have goosebumps the rest of the day because of all the interaction with the most beautiful people, human beings that I've really met. The speakers are wonderful. Talk more about what the event is.
So it is a spiritual awareness seminar / charity event. So I thought that on the whole, the universe needs to be heightened spiritually, become more aware. So I thought in my little area of the world, I would do this event every year to bring awareness to people. And I choose a couple of different speakers every year, and then a featured speaker to come in and speak, all on having to do with a topic. And this year it's healing hearts and souls. And it's about healing from within and outward, your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. And I choose a charity every year that I want to help out. And this year, we didn't specifically pick a charity. We're going to be helping the families with children who have cancer. We're not giving it to any organization, but we're bringing in 6 of the families to surprise them with things that they need. A lot of these families have been struggling, and a lot of these people, believe it or not, are single mothers and fathers who have children who are battling cancer. And I was just on the phone with a woman yesterday who has a 16-year-old daughter who has been battling cancer. And because of the time off she's had to spend with her daughter in hospitals and emergency rooms, she lost her job.
Oh, my.
So this event, I believe, I tell people, you'll leave inspired and encouraged. You'll be changed in some ways, and it's a true giving back, as well as giving back to others as well as yourself. So it's a beautiful day, and you'll hear from different speakers, and then a featured speaker is Paul Young, who wrote The Shack,
yes,
the world-renowned book and movie, who's an incredible speaker and a genuine human being.
Yes, and
has a message that has changed the world, in my opinion, having to do with faith.
Yeah, he is amazing. He's been on the show before.
Yes.
He's a good friend of Healthy Lifestyle, and I love his message to just go for that. And a lot of people are coming for that. I know It sells out every year.
Yes.
It's absolute mayhem. You have vendors there, and they're selling things that are relative to spiritualism and just anything you can think of, hearts and cards and other organizations like your brothers. I love the brothers.
Yes,
your
the
men's
Soul
group,
Brothers.
Soul
Yes.
Brothers, yeah. And then you have the Soul Sisters there as well.
Yes, the Soul Brothers and Soul Sisters were created in order to give men and women a spiritual, safe place to go and speak of their emotions without feeling judged, giving them an opportunity to be vulnerable and feeling safe and protected. And we've gone from 8 men in our group to about 72 men. And the women are up to about 30.
Wow.
And then we take our knowledge and our wisdom and we go out and help those in need.
Yeah, you're always doing events and
Yes.
going out, and we'll talk about some of those events. And one of the things at your spiritual awareness seminar and charity event is one of my favorite things. There's a lot of favorite things there, but one of my favorite thing is, I call it the Pay It Forward, but I believe you do random act of kindness.
Yes.
I love that. I still, to this day, every single week, I do a random act of kindness where I do something and people don't even know I've done it for them. Mm-hmm. And it is the best feeling inside, and it really gets you motivated to serve other people. So it started with that,
Yes.
and I can't stop.
It's beautiful. We do a different tree every year. This year we might be doing what's called a wishing tree.
Okay.
It's going to be granting all the wishes for the children who are sick in the hospitals on Long Island. So you'll take a wish off the tree and grant it for them and send it to them from Santa Claus.
Oh, that's great.
But last year was a random act of kindness tree, which we had over 300 random acts of kindness done. And you think about that one act that you display could turn into millions.
Yeah.
Just from paying it forward and people feeling good about what was done to them, giving back. There was one gentleman who paid it forward at a diner, and he bought a table next to him. He paid for their breakfast, and later on went back to get something, and the woman said, "You're not going to believe this, but it spread throughout the whole diner. Like 16 or 18 tables were paid for."
Oh, my goodness.
For other people.
Oh, that's really lovely.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, because you know what? People are really good.
Yes.
Some of them keep it a really deep, dark secret, but people are really good. And it's so much better. When you're having a bad day, I find the best thing to do if you're having a bad day and you can't get yourself out of it, serve somebody else, do something for somebody else.
Yes.
Takes you right out of it. And your solutions come because when you're too embedded in the middle of something, have you ever been like in
Yes.
the middle of something? Mm-hmm. You can't find your way out of the darkness. So you get out of the darkness by serving someone else, and all of a sudden the answer is there.
That's the light.
Yeah.
The light, the glimmer of hope that leads you in the direction of something better.
Yeah. And you do this every single year.
Yes, it's exhausting, but it's so worthy. It's so worthwhile to be able to see one child smile who was unable to smile, or see the parents' relief for a moment, just to know that there's something good happening in their lives is worth every moment that it takes to put it on.
Yeah, and you bring us all to tears every single year.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to be bringing a lot of tissues this year.
Yeah, it really is a beautiful event. You need to come down. If anybody wants to buy tickets, reach out for buying tickets. Where do they go?
The best way to go, and we're offering a discount right now, a $10 discount for the general admission tickets. You can call 631-588-4340 and just state that you're interested in getting a ticket for the November spiritual seminar. And that would be $100, and that includes lunch, and includes all the beverages, and a day that will change your life.
Without a doubt. What made you come up with this concept and idea?
Over the years of doing spiritual work, I've always run into the conflict that I had was that most people were living in their head and their human side and their ego, and they were thinking a lot, and I was trying to give them a different point of view. So the idea of it came from, I wanted to bring spirituality and a different understanding to life. That's how the concept came, but it basically came through mediumship. I had gone through a devastating time in my life where I had lost 9 people in 2 years.
Oh my.
Including my mother and my sister. And there was a time where I was really devastated and laying on the floor, actually, in a fetal position, and I was crying, and I couldn't understand why this was all happening to me. And I clearly heard on the right side of my head that you will teach people through this pain, that you need to get up and you need to go stand before people and speak of your pain and teach. And if you know me personally, I do not like talking in front of people. I'm very shy. I don't really enjoy that. In high school, I would take a 0 if I had to go up in front of the room. So this created a little bit of a conflict, but I heard in my head, go to the nearest hotel and book a room. And I did. I went to the hotel and I asked the woman, I said, do you have a conference room that I can do a little speaking in? And she said, sure. So we have two, one that's 50 people, one that's 150. I said, I'll take the 50. And I wound up booking the room, and the day of, 200 people showed up. And it was a phenomenal event. And so the idea came from, I want to shift people's perspectives to see life for what it truly is, not for what we want it to be, for what it needs to be. And then having this devastation that helped me to understand that pain is actually the greatest teacher.
Oh, it really is.
It really is.
And it creates the harsher the emotion, harsher the pain, the larger transformation you actually encounter because of one of your events. I don't know if I told you this. Because of one of your events a couple of years ago, I met Debbie. Mm-hmm. And from Debbie, she gave me the tools to get through what I was going through and got me over the pain and showed me there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's all I needed to know. Sure. Is that it's going to end, and it's going to end really well. And you have two choices. You can absolutely stay stuck and you can stay there. It's absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. But you also have the choice to change and make it bigger and better. And I like the bigger and better. So that's what I went for. I went for bigger and better. And so from this challenging, what I would look at as a very traumatic point in my life, mm-hmm. I was able to channel that, change it, do a transformation, which I've done a number of times through my life. But this was the largest one, the most I would say impactful one, not only for me, but others around me. And I really feel like I'm serving other people and really giving back and really able to communicate what it's like. I've been there. So when I communicate that and share it with other people, it absolutely resonates because I've been there. It's not like I'm talking about something I don't know about. My favorite story is I was in a grocery store when my kids were young, and we were at the checkout counter, and you know what kids do at the checkout mm-hmm. counter with that stuff, the tchotchke stuff, mm-hmm. They drive you nuts. So I was like, no. And he kept asking. I'm like, listen, if you don't stop, I'm going to duct tape you, and then I'm going to Velcro you to the wall when I get home. And the woman behind me gasped. She was like, oh my goodness. And I turned around and I looked at her and I was like, and he was laughing. I looked at her and I went, do you have children? She said, no. I said, come back and talk to me when you have children. He's fine. and he was laughing the whole time. He's like, yeah, okay, Mom, Velcro me to wall. I'd like that. So I mean, it's that kind of thing where if you've never been there, you don't understand. So it's hard to really relate to somebody. But if you've been there and felt that pain and gone through the transformation and see the light at the tunnel and actually bust through and see how beautiful it is after transformation, change is actually good. I used to be afraid of change. And also we have something in common. We're both control freaks. Mm-hmm. I'm not as much anymore because I like to see what actually comes out if I'm not. And it's always better and it's beautiful. And I still have my little elements where I can kind of control it a little bit, but I really let it blossom and take its own form. And it's fun to watch what that looks like. Control
is safe.
Yeah. Oh, very.
It's safe and it's a human emotion.
Yeah.
But when you understand, again, when you go into spirituality, you understand that there is no bad. Yeah. There's absolutely no bad here on this earth because you've come here. The biggest misconception that I've run in throughout my whole entire life and in my spiritual work is that people see bad and they feed the bad.
Yes.
Because they keep feeding it with their ego. And in all honesty, there is no bad. There's only good and opportunity. And so through this experience of what I've been doing through the last 22 years, I've lived a completely different way that sometimes when I have something what we would call humanly bad, and I tell people I'm okay with that, they don't understand that. Well, they're coming from a human perspective, and I'm coming from a soul perspective.
Right.
So if you understand that this lifetime is a series of events and circumstances and situations to help you learn and grow through your pain and through your losses and difficulty, then it's sort of empowering than to become a victim to the actual negative that the human part of us gives us.
Well, it almost becomes, I hate to say sport, but it almost becomes exciting when something bad is happening if you look at it that way, mm-hmm. because you're wanting to find out what is going to come out of it.
Yes.
Because something good always comes out of something bad.
Absolutely.
I've seen people come out of really bad situations and losses and come out with the strength that I can't even fathom.
Yeah.
And they do wonderful, mystical, magical things. And there are people who go into business solving other people's solutions. A lot of times people are entrepreneurs because they're solving someone else's issue, mm-hmm. and it ends up just turning into a business.
Right.
And there's no just about it. It's all done with purpose by the universe, your source, your God, whoever it is or however you want to refer to them, it's done with purpose. And when you know that and you're out of your ego and in your observer and you're watching that, it's magic and it's enjoyable.
Sure. It's empowering. It's exciting. It's just encouraging. So I try to teach that in my classes, my workshops, and help people to see it through the different lens. And it's very empowering and exciting.
When we come back, can we speak a little bit more about ego and observer,
sure.
discerning between the two?
Absolutely.
Excellent. This is Healthy Lifestyle. You are listening to Lori-Ann Casdia and our guest, Paul Saladino. We will be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle. I'm Lori-Ann. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas about topics, guests, anything you'd like to hear more about, please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. And of course, follow us on social media at Healthy Lifestyle with LA. When we last left off, oh, no, wait, that's a soap opera. We were just talking about ego and observer with Paul Saladino from heavenshealingguidance.com. You are, my favorite.
Thank you.
So ego, observer, how does someone discern if they're in their ego or if they're actually in their observer?
Well, the ego comes from the human part of us. It's the computer that we have in our brain. It's our thought. It's the limited version, the 5-sensory version of ourselves. And the ego is the part of us that constantly keeps us in a false reality. It's part of us that is limited, so it constantly tells us what we need to do, what we should do, what we have to do in order to be happy or to be abundant. Whereas if you're in the observer or your spirit, that knows that everything that is meant to be, and it's perfect and it's right. So when you're in a place of need, desire, want, like that kind of stuff.
Feelings.
Feelings. You're in your emotions. You're in your spirit. But if you're in a thought like I need to and I have to and all that, that's your ego. And the ego is the nemesis to our growth.
Yeah.
It's the constant conflict between, and most people live in the constant conflict between their thought and their feelings. If you listen to most people speak today, 98% of them will lead with I think rather than I feel. And so when you say I think, you automatically go into thought, and thought is not intuition, nor is it spirit. It's just your intellect, which is your ego.
So how do you know when it's your intuition speaking to you? Because I know when it is now, because it's always on my right side, and it's it's a very calm voice in my head. Yes, I have voices in my head. And it's very...
Join the club.
Very calm. Not as many as you. I don't have as many voices as you do. It's a very calm place, and it's very knowing, and it's very present.
Right.
So I'm in the present, and that's usually... It gives me the guidance. It will show... If I ask for a sign, I will get a sign. Mm-hmm. It may not be in the form that I'm thinking of,
right.
But if you just ask for a sign and you're open to it, it's amazing what happens. It just happened the other day. I wasn't sure if I was going to go in a certain direction, and I said, you know what, I'm going to throw it up and see what happens. And 2 seconds later, and I literally mean 2 seconds later, my email binged, and I opened it up, and it was this opportunity which told me, try this. It doesn't cost as much. I'm getting to the same end result, and perhaps I don't need that other one.
Absolutely.
And I was like, all right, if that's what you think. And I went and did it. And there was I don't believe in coincidences.
No,
the timing was just so flawless.
So it's a knowing, like you said, it's a knowing. Intuition is a knowing. It's not a thought. It's not, you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to analyze it. It's just a sense of knowing, which we all have. And it's usually in our quiet mind. But what's most important is to learn how to trust it. And so we as humans are taught to think, obviously. And so if there's a situation or a circumstance before us, we analyze it. We try to figure it out. We give it 12 different meanings. Whereas if you sat in quiet, the truth would come right through you, and that's your intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever had a circumstance where you went, oh, you know what? I knew I shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. That's the intuition.
Absolutely.
Where you get that voice. I used to call it my mother's voice. You get that voice. It's like, you really shouldn't do that right now. You better look both ways this time.
Yes.
And so you stop, you look both ways, and then you all of a sudden notice this car come out from nowhere. But for the fact of listening to the intuition, you may have been hit by that car.
Absolutely.
So, and I always thought it was my mother in my head. Come to find out, it was intuition.
Sure. And we all have that. It comes from your greatest and highest place. I call your higher self. It comes from your soul. A lot of people have different ideas of where it comes from. It doesn't matter. It's a universal energy that we all can tap into. And it's a gift to us because it's all knowing. It's exactly the answers and the places and the situations that you need to find your greatest and highest.
So how does somebody find that? How do they tap into their intuition?
It takes a little training because what the most difficult part of it is you have to quiet your thought.
Yes.
And most of us live in busy heads. And we're constantly trying to make our life and figure it out. And we're running rampant every day, but we don't give it the quiet time to allow it just to come in. And so most of the people that I train in my classes with spiritual intuition classes, they'll tell me that it was through it. I was quiet one day and I thought of a friend who haven't heard from in years. And then 15 minutes later, they called me. Well, because you quieted your thought, the intuition was free to come in. And so one of the greatest intuitions are that of a mother. They're so connected through love and that they can actually intuitively pick up things about their children. It's not a thought, it's a knowing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of books you can read and a lot of classes you can take, but it takes, most importantly, you to have time to quiet the brain. Sort of like meditation. It's another routine, another ritual that is great to train your intuition, but it requires you to quiet, and that's hard for us to do.
Yeah, I call it white noise in our head. We have all this chatter. I really don't have as much anymore. I do have my days when I have chatter. But what I find is when I meditate, I'm able to, and it took a long time. It took a lot of practice, daily practice of meditating. And you don't have to do it for 6 hours. Some people are like, oh, you have to meditate for at least an hour. No, you don't. So I started, in small bites. It's like eating a pizza. You don't order a pizza and eat the whole thing at once. You take a slice at a time. All right, you might.
I might.
You do not. You take a slice at a time and you consume it a slice at a time. So that's what I did. And that's how I got into Kundalini Yoga. And, you have to do Kundalini Yoga. You have to do it for 40 days. So if you break that, you have to start from day one again.
Oh, wow.
And so it really helps you foster a habit or a ritual, however you want to look at it. I look at habits as bad things, rituals as good things. And it really helped me train and get the white noise out of my head, the chatter, the useless stuff and thoughts that was in my head for no apparent reason. And it was really stopping myself from being the better me that I could be. Sure. And once that quieted, it's just amazing what comes in. And then the intuition was it had an opportunity. It was trying to scream over all the other stuff, and who could hear it? Right. And now it doesn't have to. It's just right there. And when I find that I'm getting just too much noise in my head, I stop and I'll just, maybe do an Ho'oponopono thought. Go through that, or I'll do a short little meditation. I know they have these apps that you could do, like this 30-minute meditation. If you have an Apple Watch, they kind of force you to do little meditations, which I think is great. And it just stops you. It resets you. It's similar to a marketing thing that I do, is that when you're doing big gatherings, you break it up between speaking and then some other activity and then back to speaking. But if you keep speaking all the way through, it almost turns into a background drone, and you'll find that people start doing other things. They'll start working on their phone, or they'll start doing their grocery shopping lists. But if you break it up and put a video in between, you disconnect and reconnect them, and you get them back in alignment. So the same thing with, I think, taking 5-minute meditation, and that's just finding some sound, even if it's the air conditioning, the hum, a repetitive sound, and just honing in on that. Try to, every time a thought comes in, is to release it and say, not now, we'll talk about it later, we'll think about it later, and just go back into listening to the air conditioning sound or some kind of repetitive sound, and not a TV. Just shut those things off. Even before that, one of the greatest tools that I learned was abdominal breathing. Okay. So breathing, if you pay attention to your breathing, it's an automatic relaxer. So if we focus on our breath, which most people who teach meditation and intuitive classes, that's the first thing that we teach people, is to stay focused on your breath, to go in
be mindful of, and then to release. And once you can do that, you can actually lower blood pressure. You can quiet your brain just by staying focused on that. 98% of us also breathe from our chest area, which is a limited version of oxygen in our lungs. When you do abdominal breathing, you can actually accelerate your whole entire body, and you can actually relax yourself much quicker. So by paying attention to your breath and then focusing on something like a music or a noise or a water sound or anything like that, puts you into that calm state, which will relax you. It took me 4 years to learn how to meditate.
Yeah, it takes time. It's not something you do overnight. And, that's the misnomer. And it's not, I was told years and years ago, you just get a white piece of paper and you just stare at a white piece of paper. And I'm like, no. That's a piece of paper that I start writing on. Yeah. So that's not a good idea. Or you blank out your mind. I'm like, how do I blank out my mind? It's constantly like spinning and going, and you want it that way. That's the excitement in life and the joy in life. But the breathing is a really good thing. We do that in yoga as well. It's all about the breathing. And some of the time, in Kundalini, you make audible noises, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with it. There's two things that comes from that. One is I just watch, and the observation of it is really lovely. But the one thing that comes out of it is when you're doing that and you're communicating out, that vibration goes out there, and that absolutely connects you with the other people in the room and with yourself, within yourself, and helps you elevate higher. But that also distracts you from thoughts because you're so busy thinking about making that sound.
Sure.
That it distracts you, especially at the beginning when you're a newbie. So any kind of yoga, breathing, meditation is helpful.
All of it preoccupies the brain.
Yes.
And it calms it down and allows you to open up to intuitive, because intuitive is the information coming from spirit in the afterworld or the universe. And so it has to have a clear vessel, and most of us are crowded with thought.
Yeah.
So once you open yourself up and relax yourself, you can then train yourself. And every one of us is intuitive.
Sure.
Every one of us has the ability to draw on this information.
We're all empathic.
We all are.
Yeah.
But the ego gets in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And conditioning, I think.
Sure.
And our conditioning as we go through school and get older. I really, I love that thought about extending intuition. And you do classes, don't you?
Yes, I do workshops. I do a monthly workshop, which I have just ended a series and now waiting till after the big event in November, and I'll be starting again in January.
And you have different topics for January, February, March, which is a great thing, especially to do in the winter, because you kind of nuzzle in and you learn something new, right?
I love it. Yes.
And have you decided on your topics yet?
Yes. So January we'll be doing a workshop on the book, The Four Agreements.
Oh, I love that book.
It's an amazing book, and written by Miguel Ruiz, who came up with this idea that our soul makes 4 agreements before it comes here on Earth. And they're really very interesting agreements that if we can apply to our life, we can reduce stress, give us a greater understanding, allow us to live a more abundant and happy life. That's our class in January.
And I love that book. It really is easy to apply. It's a very simple, it's a short book. It's not a long book. It's very short. You can devour that like in an hour at best. And in February, you're doing another?
We're doing one on insecurities. And how they hold us captive, and where they came from, and what their purpose really is. And I'll give you the tools how to release them or empower yourself from them to no longer be captive.
Because we're totally factory installed with everything we need. And if we eliminate the insecurities, we're able to really vibrate where we're supposed to. And then your March?
It is about forgiveness, which is one of the greatest gifts that I think God gives us. It's the most empowering emotion besides compassion and love to me. It's to be able to forgive and to get out of the idea that you know better. Because when we're holding back or we're holding judgment on somebody else that we feel has hurt us, we're not living in our spirit. We're living in the idea that they did something to us, and in fact, they did something for us.
Right.
So when you can forgive, you can understand what you were meant to learn through this whole thing and become a greater version of yourself.
And not forgiving is like asking someone to take poison, but you're drinking it and they're not affected by it. Only you are. 9 times out of 10, they're walking along not even knowing what happened.
Yes.
And you're sitting there harboring something that's just eating you alive. And that's where disease comes from, is pushing all that stuff down. So all of this elevates you as a human being. It elevates your health. You're going to find you're a happier person as long as you're not booking, large events like you are, Paul, right? Because you keep talking about how exhausted you are, and understandable, because the event, November 9th, 29th is unbelievable. It's spiritual awareness seminar and charity event. We will be there. Healthy Lifestyle will be there broadcasting from the event, and Paul Young will be there, and some of my other favorites like Debbie Silber will be there. I look forward to this every year. It's a wonderful event. You will cry because when you see these families and what they're going through, and they're doing it with such courage and really taking on so much, and when they are helped out just a little bit, it just breaks them down. And I know that's not your intention. It's to kind of envelop them in a nice warm blanket with some assistance as little or as much as possible. Last year, I believe you gave out a trip to one of them. I believe it was to Disney World, was a wish.
That was for two military families that lost their husbands in a military crash. We did it for dogs last year.
Right. I remember. And they adopted all the dogs.
Yes,
I almost took two home.
Yes, we did. But we did as an extra. We gave to the families who had lost their husbands to this horrific helicopter crash, and we sent one of the families to Disney.
Yeah, that was magnificent, and there's raffles, and there's so much to do, and it's a whole day event, and the lunch is always lovely. You do it over at Stonebridge, right?
Stonebridge Country Club in Smithtown, yes.
Yeah, beautiful job Stonebridge does, yes. And it's really laid out very nicely. Your baskets are gorgeous.
Thank you.
I love those raffle baskets. I wanted to win every single one of them. I didn't win any last year, but I'm going to try again this year.
Okay.
But very deserving people won, so it was nice. But if you want to be surrounded by a lot of people, like-minded people like yourself, if you want to learn something, they have different speakers that really touch different notes, and I'm sure one, if not all of them, will touch you deeply. I know it happens to me year over year. And of course, the special speaker and you. Are you speaking on a specific topic this year, Paul?
I'm a little unsure. I mean, I have an idea which will be cutting edge and probably pushing the envelope a little bit, but I think it's necessary.
Really? That's so strange.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous about it because I think because of the divide in the world right now and the constant struggle and tug of wars that are going on in the world right now, that I think something has to be addressed with that. And so I'm toying with this idea. I haven't yet decided. But I have good reason to speak of it. And I think, the overall, that's why this one specifically is about healing. And I think we all are in need of healing right now.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot of things going on in the world that are being not seen. Like we have natural disasters and mass shootings and things that are giving us an indication that things are not in alignment. And so I think it's important that we bring healing to this world. And so by coming to this event, I guarantee people that they'll be healed in some way, that it'll inspire them to get outside of their own little bubble and to go out, like you said earlier, and be selfless, help someone else, and feel the joy and the peace that comes with that. So I'm going to be speaking on a little bit about the divide in the world and how I believe truly what this means and what we would need to do to get back together.
Well, it starts with each of us healing ourselves and healing each other and forgiving each other and going out into the world in a more positive way and taking those things that are uncomfortable, maybe not the way you want it in a specific day, and just going with it, going with the flow. The other day I was leaving my house. I was going to do a speech and, excuse me, and on my way out the door, I spilled my cup of coffee all over my dress. And I was like, all right. And then I end up at the place, and just before I'm about to speak, and I go to the back of the room and I get another cup of coffee and I spill it all over me again. And I was like, okay. So I wasn't sure what the message was, but clearly I wasn't, drink more water. Clearly I wasn't meant to have coffee that day. So I was just like, but I could have got upset. I could have changed my whole day. It could have ruined my day. And that's not what it was. And that's not what it was about. It got my attention, let me focus on what's important. And that's what I chose to do. So it's a choice. And going out there and healing starts with ourselves. And I look forward to hearing that because you're very insightful and inspirational. And you still offer your services as far as...
Yes.
So let's
personal
talk more
services?
about that. Yeah, personal service.
Sure, I do. Obviously, I do psychic readings. I do mediumship. I do intuitive counseling. I do energy healing with people who are not well. And I also am a certified hypnotherapist. So I do hypnotherapy for those people who may have addictions or weight issues or depressions. So I have a whole bunch of different things that are listed in my website, heavenshealingguidance.com.
Yeah, heavenshealingguidance.com. Of course, all this information will be up on our site and associated with this particular episode. And if there was one thing in the last few minutes that we have, if there's one thing you could tell everybody who's listening, what would that be today? What would be your statement today?
That your life is way more than what you can see. It's more than what you can touch or taste or even know right now. That if you can tap into spirituality, which is not a religion, it's not a cult, it's just a greater understanding, it's an enlightenment or an empowerment that'll allow you to see the truth behind why we are actually here. So if I could encourage everyone today to just step outside of their own life, take a look in and see what is going on in your life. And anything that you define as bad or not good is actually your greatest asset to learning and becoming a better person. So selflessness and kindness and compassion and love and forgiveness are all the gifts that God gives us, and everything else is man-made. Everything else will be feeding your ego, where those other issues, those other emotions will nurture your soul. And that's what we're here for. That's to nurture the souls of ourselves and everyone else.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, love, compassion, all those positive things. If it's a good emotion, we're supposed to be experiencing it.
Yes.
If it's a bad emotion, they're useless. They suck up your energy. They waste your time. They keep you small. That's the purpose of them. That's why people invented it, because people invented those emotions.
Absolutely.
God certainly didn't. Source certainly didn't. Universe certainly didn't, because that's not what our intent is to be down here. We're supposed to learn a lesson and serve each other. And through that, we shouldn't have to have all these other emotions that are limiting. They keep you small so other people feel more elevated. And I always say, look to what someone's intention is.
Right.
So when someone brings something to your attention or is doing something that's not really good, what is their intent and how is it relevant to you? I'm writing things about that right now, which we will talk about another time. But in the meantime, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's always a blessing for me. Thank you all so much for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle. My heart is always just soaring by sharing this time with you. And remember, do a little something for yourself every day. Create that new balance. Thank you for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle. Until next time, show up for you and show up big.